What Everybody is Saying by Joe Navarro with Marvin Carlins. Picture this. A man sits at the end of a long table, cool as a cucumber, fielding questions from an FBI agent. He's not even a major suspect in this murder case. Everything about his story lines up perfectly. His alibi? Rock solid. His demeanor? Completely sincere. But something's nagging at the agent, a man who's made a career out of reading what bodies whisper when mouths stay silent. So he switches tactics, throwing out a series of what-if scenarios. Let's say you had committed this crime. The agent begins casually. Would you have used a gun? The man shakes his head. Nope. What about a knife? Another calm denial. The agent keeps going down his mental checklist. How about an ice pick? And there it is. Blink and you'd miss it. Literally. The moment those two words leave the agent's lips, the suspect's eyelids slam shut like garage doors. They stay closed just a fraction of a second too long, then pop back open as the next weapon gets mentioned. In that microscopic moment, everything changes. See, the ice pick was exactly what the killer used, and the police had kept that detail locked down tight. Only one person outside law enforcement would react to those words, and he just did. The man's body had ratted him out, betraying what his carefully chosen words were desperately trying to hide. That minor suspect instantly shot to the top of the list, and wouldn't you know it, he eventually confessed to the whole thing. The agent who caught that barely there flicker of truth, that was Joe Navarro. For a quarter century, he worked FBI counterintelligence, hunting down master spies and dangerous criminals by becoming fluent in a language most people don't even know exists. He wasn't reading minds. He was reading bodies. He figured out that long before humans invented words, our bodies had already developed an incredibly sophisticated way of broadcasting our true thoughts, feelings, and intentions. And here's the kicker. That ancient communication system is still humming away inside all of us, 24/7. In his groundbreaking book, What Everybody is Saying, Navarro lifts the veil on this hidden world. He shows us that our bodies are like walking, talking billboards, constantly advertising messages to anyone savvy enough to read them. Sure, we can polish our words, rehearse our speeches, and even straight up lie through our teeth. But our body language? That's a whole different story. It tends to tell the unfiltered truth, whether we like it or not. Today, we're diving headfirst into this silent language. By the time we're done here, you'll have a whole new superpower for understanding people. You'll discover why your feet are basically truth tellers, how to spot the difference between someone genuinely smiling and someone just being polite, and how to know if someone's truly digging your company or mentally planning their escape. This isn't some bag of tricks for manipulating people. It's about developing real understanding, a kind of practical empathy that'll make every conversation you have richer and more meaningful. To really get what somebody's saying, without words, we need to peek under the hood and understand how our brain actually works. Here's the wild part. We don't just have one brain. We've got three, all working together like a committee that doesn't always agree. There's the newest member, your thinking brain, also called the neocortex. This is your inner mathematician, poet, and strategic planner, all rolled into one. It's brilliant, creative, and it's also the part that's perfectly comfortable bending the truth. It's what lets you tell your friend their questionable haircut looks amazing, or allows a guilty person to look someone straight in the eye and say, "Wasn't me." But underneath that smooth-talking, thinking brain sits something much older and more primitive, the limbic brain. This is your survival system, the part that's been keeping humans alive for millions of years. It's your emotional headquarters, and here's what makes it special. It operates on pure instinct, lightning fast, without stopping to think things through. It's always scanning your environment, constantly asking, is this safe? Is this dangerous? Should I be excited or terrified right now? And because it doesn't have time to filter or fake anything, Joe Navarro calls the limbic brain the honest brain. It's the reason a terrorist at a border crossing starts sweating bullets, or why a poker player's feet start doing a happy dance when they draw a winning hand. The limbic brain is broadcasting the truth in high definition, whether the person wants it to or not. This honest brain follows a very specific playbook when dealing with threats, a survival script that evolution hardwired into every human being. You've probably heard about fight or flight, right? Well, turns out that's only part of the story, and we've been telling it backward. The actual sequence, the one that's kept our species in business for millennia, is freeze, flight, and fight. The freeze response is where it all starts. Think about a deer caught in headlights. 1,000,000 years ago on the African savanna, our ancestors figured out that predators are wired to chase movement. Stand perfectly still, and you might as well be invisible. We still pull this move today. Ever been caught red-handed doing something you shouldn't? What's your first instinct? You freeze like a statue. During intense interrogation, suspects will lock their feet around chair legs like they're strapped into an ejector seat. Sometimes it's more subtle. Someone might just hold their breath, or you'll notice their shoulders creeping up toward their ears, like they're trying to hide their neck. Navarro calls this the turtle effect. It's your subconscious trying to make you smaller, attempting to hide in plain sight, and it screams weakness and insecurity. If freezing doesn't make the threat go away, your brain hits the panic button for option 2, flight. The mission is simple. Put distance between you and the danger. In our modern world, you can't exactly sprint out of every awkward meeting or uncomfortable conversation, though. Wouldn't that be something? So our limbic brain has gotten creative. We create distance in sneakier ways. Maybe you lean away from someone you're not vibing with. Or your feet angle toward the nearest exit, broadcasting your body's escape plan even while your torso is politely facing the person you're talking with. You might even throw up barriers, grabbing your purse, hugging a notebook, or strategically placing a pillow between you and the source of your discomfort. These are all the modern, socially acceptable versions of running away. Only when freezing and fleeing have both failed does your brain pull out the big guns. Fight. And we're not just talking about throwing punches here. In everyday life, a fight might be a heated argument loaded with cutting remarks and personal jabs. It's about establishing dominance, showing who's boss. You'll see people puff their chests out like silverback gorillas, trying to make themselves look bigger and more intimidating. They'll plant their feet wide in a territorial stance, claiming their space. These are ancient, aggressive signals, flashing a neon warning that things are about to get real. Now here's something fascinating. After any of these limbic responses, after a moment of stress, fear, or anxiety, our brain immediately tries to hit the reset button and calm everything down. And it does this through what Navarro identifies as one of the absolute game changers in understanding body language, pacifying behaviors. These are the little self-soothing rituals we do, almost always without even realizing it. Kids suck their thumbs. Adults? We've graduated to more socially acceptable versions. We chew on pens, twirl our hair, or rub our foreheads. These pacifying behaviors are like emotional smoke detectors, incredibly reliable signs that stress is in the air. Whenever you spot one, you should immediately ask yourself, what just happened to trigger that? Someone asks a question and the person instantly touches their neck, A topic comes up, and suddenly they're gently stroking their own arm. That's the limbic brain speaking up, saying, "Whoa, that made me uncomfortable. Time to calm down." One of the most common pacifiers is neck touching. Your neck is packed with nerve endings that, when stimulated just right, can actually slow your heart rate and bring on the calm. Men typically rub the back of their neck or adjust their tie. Women have a very specific move. They'll often touch or cover that little hollow at the base of their throat, called the suprasternal notch. This is gold for a body language reader. Navarro shares this spine-tingling story about questioning the mother of a dangerous fugitive. He asks her point blank, "Is your son in the house?" She says no, but her hand shoots straight to that neck dimple. He asks again, rephrasing it, and boom, her hand flies to her neck again to calm her stress. Her body was screaming the anxiety her words were trying to bury. He knew right then her son was in that house, and sure enough, they found him hiding in a closet. Another powerful pacifier is what Navarro calls the leg cleanser. When someone's sitting down and feeling the heat, you might catch them placing their hands on their thighs and sliding them down toward their knees, like they're wiping off sweaty palms. Since this usually happens under a table, it flies under the radar, but it's an incredibly accurate stress signal. Learning to spot these pacifiers, neck touching, face rubbing, leg cleansing, tugging at a collar to let some air in, is like getting X-ray vision into someone's emotional state. They tell you, in real time, what subjects are making them squirm. They don't necessarily mean someone's lying, but they're a guaranteed sign of discomfort. And for someone who knows what to look for, that's where the real detective work begins. Before we can start spotting these signals in the wild, though, we need some ground rules, a framework for observation. Navarro lays out what he calls the, quote, 10 commandments for observing and decoding nonverbals, and they're the foundation for everything else. First up, and this is huge, be a competent observer. Sherlock Holmes nailed it when he said, "You see, but you do not observe." Most of us sleepwalk through life, looking at things without really seeing them. Observation is a skill, like a muscle at the gym. You've got to work it out consciously and deliberately. Second, always observe in context. Someone standing with their arms crossed and shivering might be uncomfortable with your conversation, or they might just be freezing. Shaking after a car accident makes sense. Shaking when someone asks where you had lunch is weird. Context is everything. Third, learn to recognize universal behaviors. These are tells that work the same way for pretty much everyone. When someone presses their lips together until they practically disappear, it's a universal broadcast that something's bothering them. Fourth, alongside those universal tells, learn to spot idiosyncratic behaviors. These are quirks unique to specific people. Maybe your buddy scratches his head every single time he's about to tell a whopper. That's his personal tell, and you only learn it by paying attention over time. This leads naturally to commandment number 5, establish their baseline behaviors. Before you can spot what's weird, you need to know what's normal for that person. How do they usually sit? Where do their hands typically hang out? What does their face look like when they're relaxed versus when they're stressed? Without a baseline, you're flying blind. Sixth, always look for multiple tells, what experts call clusters of behaviors. One signal might be a false alarm, but if you're seeing 3 or 4 different body cues all singing the same tune, like crossed arms, plus leaning away, plus feet pointed at the exit, you can be way more confident in your reading. Seventh, and this is critical, look for changes in behavior. A sudden shift from chilled out to tense is way more important than the posture itself. Navarro tells this powerful story about a young boy at a family reunion who had always greeted his uncle with bear hugs. But this one time he suddenly froze up and wouldn't go near the guy. This break from his normal pattern was a massive red flag, suggesting something bad had gone down between them since they'd last met. The change is the message. Eighth, learn to detect false or misleading signals. This takes practice, but the book teaches you how to tell the difference between a genuine smile that lights up someone's whole face and a fake one that's just mouth service. Ninth, when you're feeling lost, simplify things. Ask yourself, is this a behavior of comfort or discomfort? Happiness, contentment, and relaxation show up as comfort cues. Stress, anxiety, and fear show up as discomfort cues. Almost every nonverbal signal can be sorted into one of these two buckets. This is your master key. And finally, the 10th commandment. Be subtle about your observations. Your goal is to read people without them catching on. Staring someone down will make them uncomfortable and mess with their natural behavior, which defeats the whole purpose. A master observer is a ninja observer. Armed with these rules, we can start our tour of the body. And we're going to do this in a very specific order, from the most honest part to the least. If I ask you what the most honest part of the body is, you'd probably guess the eyes, right? Nope. According to decades of FBI fieldwork, the most honest parts of our body are actually our feet and legs. Why? Because for millions of years, our survival depended on our legs and feet, reacting instantly to danger without waiting for permission from our conscious mind. They had to be ready to run or kick at a split second's notice. While we've been trained since we were kids to control our facial expressions, to maintain that poker face, most of us pay zero attention to what our feet are doing. They're the furthest part of our body from our conscious awareness, so they often reveal the purest, most unfiltered intentions of our limbic brain. When we're happy or pumped about something, we get what Navarro calls happy feet. Our feet will literally wiggle and bounce with joy. He tells this great story about watching a poker player on TV who got dealt an incredible hand. Above the table, his face was a mask of total indifference, but the camera caught what was happening under the table. His feet were bouncing and wiggling like crazy, like a kid who just found out they're going to Disney World. His feet were screaming, "I'm about to win big," while his face was coolly suggesting, "Meh, I've got nothing." Where our feet point is also a massive clue. We subconsciously point our feet toward where we want to go. If you're chatting with someone and their torso is facing you, but their feet are angled toward the door, their body is telling you they want to bail. It's a powerful intention signal. If you walk up to two people talking and want to join them, watch their feet. If they only turn their torsos to acknowledge you but their feet stay planted, they're politely broadcasting that they'd rather keep this a two-person conversation. But if they pivot their whole bodies, feet included, opening up their circle to let you in, that's a genuine welcome. Leg crossing is another surprisingly honest tell. When we're standing, crossing one leg over the other throws us off balance. Our limbic brain will only let us do this when we feel completely safe and comfortable. The second a stranger steps into an elevator, someone standing with crossed legs will almost always instantly uncross them and plant both feet firmly on the ground, getting ready for whatever might happen. So if you see two people talking and they both have their legs crossed, it's a really strong sign. They're totally at ease with each other. Moving up the body, we hit the torso. Your torso houses all your vital organs, so your brain is pretty motivated to protect it. When we feel comfortable and safe, we do something called ventral fronting. We expose our vulnerable front side, our ventral side, to people we like and trust. Lovers lean in close across a table, exposing their torsos to each other. But when we feel threatened or don't like someone, we flip the script with ventral denial. We turn slightly away, shielding our front. A couple whose relationship is going south will subconsciously start angling their torsos away from each other, even when they're sitting right next to each other. When we can't physically lean away, we create what's called a torso shield. We might suddenly cross our arms, or grab our backpack or a stack of books to form a barrier. Even buttoning a suit jacket can be a subtle form of shielding, closing off our vulnerable side from someone who's making us uneasy. Next up are the arms. Our arms are literally our first line of defense. When we're happy and confident, our arms swing freely and seem to defy gravity. Think about a champion athlete throwing their arms up in victory. That's a universal, high-confidence display. But when we feel sad, defeated, or threatened, our arms get heavy. They might droop at our sides or pull in completely, folding across our chest in a protective gesture. Navarro points out that abused children often learn to keep their arm movements small and controlled around their abuser, an instinctive attempt to avoid drawing attention. Our arms are also tools for powerful territorial displays. Standing with your hands on your hips in the classic arms akimbo pose is a textbook way of asserting dominance and claiming space. It sends a message of authority, which is why you see police officers and military folks strike this pose all the time. Another dominant move is the quote-quote effect, where someone leans back in their chair with their hands locked behind their head. This makes them look bigger and broadcasts comfort and control. It's typically a move reserved for the person with the most power in the room. The hands come next, and boy, are they expressive. Our brains dedicate massive processing power to our hands, which is why we're naturally drawn to watch them when someone's talking. Because of this, hiding your hands, stuffing them in your pockets, or tucking them under a table instantly triggers suspicion in people watching you. We're hardwired to want to see someone's hands before we can feel comfortable around them. One of the most powerful high-confidence signals you can make with your hands is steepling, touching the spread fingertips of both hands together to form what looks like a church steeple. Lawyers, judges, and executives do this constantly because it projects extreme confidence and certainty. If you see someone steepling while they talk, you know they feel they're operating from a position of strength. On the flip side, when we lose confidence, our hands often give us away. A steeple might collapse into interlaced fingers or hand-wringing, classic signs of stress and anxiety. Thumbs are also surprisingly loud communicators. When we feel confident, we tend to show off our thumbs, often hooking them in our pockets with the thumbs sticking out. It's a high-status, gravity-defying gesture, but when we feel insecure, we flip it. We hide our thumbs by putting them inside our pockets, with only the fingers hanging out. This is a super common low-confidence display that projects weakness and uncertainty. Finally, we arrive at the face, the mind's canvas. It's the most expressive part of our body, capable of more than 10,000 different expressions. But it's also the part we've been most trained to use for deception. Still, the truth has a way of leaking out. The eyes are particularly revealing. When we see something we like, our pupils dilate. When we see something we don't like, they constrict. This is completely involuntary, pure limbic response. Navarro used this to bust co-conspirators in an espionage case. He showed a spy a series of index cards with names written on them. On two specific names, the spy's pupils instantly constricted. His brain was registering threat, revealing the identities he was desperately trying to protect. Eye blocking is another powerful tell. When we hear something we dislike or disagree with, we'll often instinctively squint, close our eyes for an extra long moment, or even shield them with a hand. This is the brain trying to block out negative information. It's the nonverbal version of saying, "I really don't want to hear this." And then there's the smile. We all intuitively know the difference between a real, genuine smile and a fake, polite one. A real smile, what's called a zygomatic smile, involves muscles that pull the corners of your mouth up and create crow's feet around your eyes. A fake smile, a real serious smile, only pulls the corners of your mouth sideways, and the eyes remain dead giveaways. Perhaps the most reliable facial stress indicator is lip compression. When we're under pressure, our lips often seem to vanish as we press them together tightly. It's the limbic brain's way of saying, shut down, lock it up. You'll see this constantly in people testifying before Congress or getting grilled at a press conference. It's a rock-solid indicator of negative emotion. Another mouth gesture to watch for is lip pursing. This is when someone puckers their lips, and it almost always means they disagree with what's being said or are mulling over an alternative. When you see mixed signals on someone's face, like they're saying, "I'm so happy to see you," but their jaw is tight and their smile doesn't reach their eyes, Navarro gives a simple rule: always trust the negative emotion. The negative reaction is almost always the more honest initial response from the limbic brain, before the thinking brain has had time to slap on a more socially acceptable mask. This brings us to the trickiest topic of all: detecting deception. After spending a career as a so-called human lie detector, Navarro's primary message is one of extreme caution. He states it flat out: there is no single behavior that proves someone's lying. There's no Pinocchio effect where a liar's nose grows. Many behaviors people mistake for lying, like fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, or sweating, are simply signs of stress. An innocent person, under the intense pressure of being wrongly accused, will often look just as guilty as an actual liar. The key, he emphasizes, is to shift your whole mindset. Don't hunt for lies, look for comfort and discomfort. When you see a cluster of discomfort cues, pacifying behaviors, torso shielding, frozen hands, it doesn't automatically mean the person is lying. It means the topic you just touched on is causing them serious stress. Your job isn't to accuse them of deception. Your job is to get curious. Why did that question trigger such a strong reaction? That's the thread you need to follow. By creating a comfortable environment and then carefully watching when discomfort shows up, you can gently explore the areas of greatest sensitivity and, eventually, get closer to the truth. Honesty reveals itself through comfort, synchrony, and genuine emphasis. Deception reveals itself through discomfort, disconnect, and a lack of real conviction. As we wrap up this journey, it's worth taking a moment to appreciate the profound shift in perspective this book offers. For most of our lives, we've been trained to focus on words. We analyze them, debate them, trust them. But Joe Navarro pulls back the curtain to reveal that a second conversation, a much older and way more honest one, is happening simultaneously, right before our eyes. It's a silent dialogue broadcast by our bodies, and until now, most of us have been completely deaf to it. The most powerful takeaway for me is the beautiful simplicity of the comfort versus discomfort framework. In a world where human psychology can get incredibly complex, this one principle cuts through all the noise. Stop trying to play human lie detector. Stop hunting for deception. Instead, start looking for ease and unease. When you see comfort, open posture, genuine smiles, relaxed movements, you know you're on solid ground. When you see discomfort, pacifying gestures, blocking behaviors, physical withdrawal, you know there's something deeper to explore. It transforms observation from an act of judgment into an act of curiosity and empathy. Another core insight is the profound honesty of our limbic brain. In an age where we can carefully craft our words on social media and in carefully edited emails, it's humbling to remember that there's a part of us that simply cannot lie. Our bodies hold our truths. This knowledge isn't a tool for manipulation. It's a bridge to deeper connection. It allows us to sense a friend's unspoken anxiety, recognize a colleague's genuine excitement, or feel the subtle shift in a room when a topic becomes sensitive. It empowers us to respond not just to what people say, but to what they truly feel. So how can you start putting this incredible knowledge into practice today? Here are 3 simple actions you can take right now. First, for the next week, become a baseline observer. Don't try to read anyone yet, just notice. When you're hanging out with family or friends, pay attention to their normal state. How do they usually stand? How much do they gesture with their hands when they're relaxed? You're not looking for secrets. You're just learning their unique nonverbal language. Second, play what I call the coffee shop game. Find a comfortable spot in a public place and simply watch interactions from a distance. Check out people's feet. Are 2 people on a date pointing their feet toward each other, or is one person's foot angled toward the exit? Watch for torso leans. Notice the difference between a real, eye-crinkling laugh and a polite, social chuckle. You're simply training your eye to see patterns that have always been there. Third, in your next important conversation, focus on just one thing: making the other person comfortable. Your only goal is to create psychological safety. As you do this, notice what happens to their body language. Watch their posture open up, their gestures become more fluid, their smile more genuine. By learning what comfort looks like, you'll be able to spot its absence much more easily. We've covered the main highways of what everybody is saying today, but the real treasures are found on the side roads, in the rich details and fascinating stories that fill every page. A summary is like a map. It shows you the destination, but reading the actual book is the journey itself. It's where you experience those aha moments that can only come from letting ideas sink in at your own pace. If anything we've explored today has sparked your curiosity and made you look at the world a little differently, I genuinely encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning, it's an experience that can fundamentally change how you see every human interaction. Also, if this journey into the silent language of the body has been valuable to you, please take a moment to like this summary and subscribe to Billionaire's Bookshelf. Each week, we dive into another life-changing book, and by subscribing, you'll make sure you don't miss our next adventure. Let's keep learning and growing together.